everyone. Specifically, are you an influencer, a speaker, somebody who wants to start a podcast? Perhaps you are an experienced podcaster and you're looking to grow. Stay with us. We got an incredible show tonight to help you grow, elevate your business, reach new audience, and simply magnify what you're already doing. So I want to welcome Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller, my co-host tonight for this show. Dr. Andrea, how are you doing this evening? Looks like you're traveling again.
I'm actually in Findlay, Ohio this time, so I'm home where I live, and it seems that it's winter in Ohio again, but things are wonderful and great, and I'm really excited about our guests tonight.
Yes, and we were just talking in the green room, and you said that you had been to 172 events in the year prior to COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel like
get
you're in like
around a
another
lot.
country. We got that cool delay, right? It's like we're live from London. We got Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller.
I am supposed to go to Poland in 2 weeks, so we'll see if everything pans out as it should. So I might be calling in from Poland.
Well, I want to ask you, as we set the show up today, the power of platform. Can you hear me? I'm going to make sure. I think there's a delay. So
there's a weird delay. So I did hear you say the power of platform. Well, platforms are they've been instrumental in businesses propelling forward and having such great growth and retention and expansion. So both of the guests tonight and how they show up and portray their businesses, it's a really great opportunity for people to see how platform in their business will help propel them forward as well.
Right. And you've been on a lot of platforms, and I'm sure you could share a story of connecting someone to the right podcast show, or someone who gets their course finally uploaded, and now all of a sudden they're in this expansion. One connection, one platform. Would you agree that can radically change someone's trajectory as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely, because each time you're on a different platform, whether it's a virtual platform or a live platform, or a different software platform or something else, you never know who you're going to be in front of, or what person is going to see you that will want to joint venture with you, want to work with you, be a celebrity, whether it be an entrepreneur. For me, I just met a multimillionaire, and he loves me and wants to work with me, and just from one person seeing me and deciding they should introduce us. So you never know. The power of connections and the power of platform is quite fabulous.
And that leads me into, I'm going to share a quote for the day. And I think it's going to be fitting to really set this show up. And here it is. One day of favor is worth 1,000 days of labor. One day of favor is worth 1,000 days of labor. And the best thing I can come up with, for that favor, it happens when you get in commune with other people and you get yourself up on a platform. That can radically change your trajectory. So I want to welcome in all of our audiences right now. We have Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku. This episode is being pushed up onto the podcast platform. So if you're catching the playback, you are at the right time, at the right place to get what you're going to hear today, because you're going to have two incredible opportunities, two chances maybe to manifest that one day of favor by simply connecting with these two folks that we're going to meet introduced today. So our first guest I met through the power of connection. Mr. Dan Andrews had connected me with Kachina Gosselin. And what I learned, because you know how you get connected with somebody and you're kind of like, you're not sure, right? And Dr. Andre, I'm sure I know you know what to do, but sometimes when you meet people, you're like, okay, what do I do? We traded some messages. Now what do I do? I'm kind of wondering what to do. Well, the moment I connected with Kachina, she was incredibly responsive. And she immediately was making connections for me. Like wanted to connect me with people in her network. And that's basically what she did. So next thing I know, I'm getting my messenger on LinkedIn's getting filled with, you got to meet this person. You got to meet this person. I'm like, man, this is incredible. So I was able to get on these interviews, connect with people instantly based on her efforts. She's got an interesting background associated with MIT. She'll tell you about that. But what I love is that she's passionate. You can see if you look, she's passionate about community building and helping folks elevate. And so she's been building this platform that she now calls the Founder's Path. And I love the tagline. We help exhausted entrepreneurs. Anybody know any exhausted entrepreneurs out there? You're like, well, that's me. I'm the exhausted entrepreneur. You know, I'm having some fun with this, but as an entrepreneur, it's easy to get burned out because you're just all over the place. You're trying to get your podcast up. You're trying to elevate your business. And that's why she's created this, to help authors, speakers, podcasters, coaches, and consultants, so that she wants to help 1,000 people. There's a mission to help 1,000 people elevate their business. So I love what she's doing. I love how she's approaching it. And I'm eager to hear her story and to have her share more with you tonight. So help me welcome Miss Kachina Gosselin. Welcome, Kachina.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're glad to have you. And it's interesting, when we first connected, you never know where it's going to go. But now, after several connections that you've given me, and now you're on the show, and I'm excited for you to share your story. But before I do, I just want to give Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller here from the Red Carpet Connection an opportunity just to greet you and say hello and welcome you to the show as well.
It's a pleasure to see you and meet you.
Well, I'm so glad to meet you as well. You know, Kachina, looking at all the beautiful things that you've been able to do with reaching out to people and help them, you know, really hone their craft to be experts in their field. And I love that you're, very open and candid about people who are exhausted and tired. A lot of times people don't realize that, working a 9-to-5 job has one aspect of your life, but when you go to your whole life is dependent on what you're doing in your entrepreneurship, you tend to work more of a dawn to dusk and beyond. You wake up in the middle of the night remembering things that you need to know. So sometimes exhausted is exactly how people are. And I really appreciate that you're meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, haven't we all heard that quote that an entrepreneur would rather work 80 hours a week for themselves rather than 40 hours a week for other people?
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's a great quote. Wow. I know we're gonna evoke some great things here tonight. Before we do, I want to give our audience an opportunity just to learn more about you personally, how you got to this point. I mean, you mentioned MIT. You have this incredible journey that got you here to this platform that you're building. And I would love to get some background. Are you okay sharing a little bit about your story here? Going a little bit time machine travel? Perfect.
Yeah. Well, let's go far back to where I grew up. I grew up in Woodstock, New York. And so I like to say that I am a hippie turned engineer turned entrepreneur. Okay. And somewhere along the journey, I was very fortunate. I remember I got in the mail a wonderful brochure from MIT. I don't think at that time I even knew what MIT was, which just meant how uneducated I was and how college wasn't on the radar for me until I received that little packet in the mail. But I remember looking at it and I flipped to the center, and that's when the brochure turned upside down, and in the center there was a rocket ship. And so it was actually really interesting that on my way to MIT, it was the first time I'd been on a plane. I was flown out there to actually see the campus. It's called like the Frosh Week. And after that, I got so excited. I went to MIT and I decided of all the options that I had, I was going to choose the hardest major. So I studied aeronautics and astronautics, and I got my bachelor's in that. But 6 months before I graduated, I really sat back and I thought about the future that I was building towards. And I realized I didn't want to work for anyone else. And that's a really difficult position to be in if you're going to be in the aerospace industry. Right. So I realized I would have to pivot even before I graduated. And I felt like it was a huge waste at the time. I felt very self-conscious that I was going to get this degree and then not actually apply it. And I knew that intentionally before I got it. Wow. But what a journey it's been since.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I wonder how many entrepreneurs out there followed a similar path where they were going to get their degree or working towards something. And next thing you know, they're like, they get the entrepreneurial bug, or they want to go in a different direction. So I'm sure your story probably resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, and I had a lot of things that I was thinking through at the time. I was very young, so I didn't know what life really was going to hold, but I knew that I wanted freedom and flexibility. And when I thought about the industry I was moving into, it certainly not characterized by those words. So I sat back and I pivoted like we do. And a lot of people from MIT pivot into software engineering. And you have to start as an entrepreneur, you have to just start learning how to negotiate, do sales, present yourself, have that confidence that comes with a certain level of naivete. And it was really exciting. So within the first year, I closed a $90,000 plus contract, which was mind blowing to me. I grew up really poor with a single father. He built houses. By the time I got to MIT, I actually had no idea what I was doing. And so that I was able to make that transition, I think shows that I was on the right, like on the right start in the right direction. But it wasn't easy to sustain. And I definitely had to learn a lot of hard lessons along the way in order to pivot to where I am today.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about it, because I'm just sitting here thinking, what if if you could go back, or and look at that decision again, are you like, wow, I would have stayed that road, or on the road now? Like, how do you view that?
I've never regretted my decision to run a business for myself. And I'm not going to say that it's easy every step along the way. There have definitely been moments where I have wondered if it was the right choice, but it's a very brief moment where I say, I burned all the bridges because I am moving in the right direction and the direction of my dreams.
Wow. Good for you. So you closed this $90,000 deal, and you're like, you must have been just flying cloud nine.
Yeah. So I was very young, and I remember having conversations with them at the time. I was 23. I said I would do the best that I possibly could. I hired my friends, which when you go to a very amazing school with amazing people, you're very fortunate in that way to know super smart people who can help you along the way. And I understand that that's important today. One of the things that I've learned, because I've asked myself multiple times how I got into course creation, and it's a pivot that I've done more recently towards the pandemic. And what I realized is that while I went to MIT, and it's a very intellectual space, very academic space, that I was always a feeling person in a thinking world. And as I realized that I could specialize in building online courses for expert coaches, one, it was sort of selfish in the sense that I got to spend my days reading my clients' books and listening to their podcasts and consuming all this information. I was never bored when I made this pivot, and I've never been bored since. But one of the things that's a valuable skill set is that experts get lost with this kind of disconnect from the people that they serve, in that you can get so academic to the point where everybody tunes you out. They can't relate to the language you use or the concepts you use because they're too advanced. And that's actually a challenge that experts have. And it's called the curse of knowledge. And so one of the beautiful things is that when you kind of are a person like me who can bridge between the feeling types and the thinking types, is that you can do a really good job helping them communicate their value to other people who might not be as far along in the journey.
I'm going to pause for a minute, let Dr. Andrea, I think her connection's good. I just want you to chime in here on this. This is some great insight.
Yeah, it's what I would love to actually have you share with us is a little more case study of some particular things that you've seen that, had you not been who you are and shown up the way you have, how things would have turned out quite differently.
Can you say that again? In a sense, you want a case study from my life?
Yeah. Because like, if you look back and reflect, had you not known and been who you are, how things might have turned out quite differently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really hard to envision an alternate life that didn't come to pass, but I was invited to apply at Blue Origin at one point, and so I did have an option to work in the space industry. I think at the time I was aware that for the life goals that I have, with the flexibilities that I want to have a 7-figure business, work from home, be able to put a lot of time and energy into my friends, my family, my passions, that what I was seeing was forming in the aerospace industry, because there was SpaceX and it is very innovative and entrepreneurial for what there is right now, is that it wouldn't allow me the flexibility that I want to invest back into my home life and have that freedom and flexibility. I think a lot of coaches come into, and I see this with my clients. A lot of my clients are really great at what they do, but one of my clients basically lives in hotels and is flying a lot of the time. So you can have a very successful professional career that doesn't allow for the work-life balance that some of us want. And most of the careers that I saw available for me would not allow for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Definitely would have changed things.
Yes, for sure. But I don't regret it at all. I have worked on some really fascinating projects. So after that contract, and as I started building out a software development agency, I was very young, and so I knew that I would need to experiment with a lot of things to figure out what it is that I wanted to do and what I wanted to become good at. And in that space, I'm very grateful that I let myself be very idealistic. I went to Bali and I took a group of people from the tech industry out there to scuba dive and build underwater robots and play with virtual reality with the intention of bringing all of this attention and awareness to coral reef conservation. I went to Nepal, where I was nominated to support in a humanitarian maker fair out there. And so I was always looking at the ways to apply technology to help us solve humanity's issues. And I thought that the more I studied space, the more precious Earth seemed to be. And
Wow.
I'm kind of in that mindset where Mars is fascinating. And I admire and applaud everybody who works on all of the space missions and the technology coming out of the aerospace industry at this point in time. But nothing beats fresh air and clean water and, all the wildlife that we have today that over time we're gradually losing.
Very well said.
I actually have a gentleman I should introduce you to. They're building these gorgeous, beautiful homes that are these pods. And then underneath them, they are creating their own coral systems so that natural coral can grow. And then it's another place for different fish and so forth to impact and clean the water and just all these amazing things that are based on really creating a beautiful world and a sustainable place to live. That's quite exciting.
So what we're going to do, we're going to take a short break. I want to hear, when we come back, I want to hear Kachina's vision here, what she's building. And then we have our next guest, Mr. Justin Burns from Miestro, incredible platform for course creators. So what I need you to do is stay right here and we'll be right back.
Do you have an inspirational story and a message you want to get to the world? Welcome to the Underdog's Diaries.
I've always been in a situation where money was not my friend. And it's not because I didn't understand the strategy, right? Because it's the 80-20. It's not so much strategy as it is mindset, right?
An exciting new campaign that will feature your story in the newest book series, The Underdog's Diaries. A live virtual summit and a live in-person event in Philadelphia featuring the Rocky Steps. Listen, the world needs your story now more than ever. People are seeking answers and inspiration. That's where you come in. We are launching this project, The Underdog's Diaries first edition, this year, and we're looking for incredible underdog stories. If this sounds like you, complete the application today and get the process started. Additionally, for you solopreneurs, side hustlers, and entrepreneurs, we're going to have various options to help you grow your business. Complete the application today and let's get started.
Welcome back to our show. That's the Underdog's Diaries. We are working on that project. We're going to have 52 stories in that book. It's going to be an incredible project for a lot of people to get their story out. We'll have some probably repeating stories, people that have been in books before, but we'll also have people that have never been in a book before, and this will be their first time. So stay tuned for that. So back to Kachina. Kachina, what is your vision now with this platform you've built, and what do you see for? You said you have a mission to help 1,000 people.
Yeah. So through the process of building out our courses, it's one thing to build your business around a service, but the more that I worked with my clients, I fell in love with my clients and the mission that they have. And so that's where I came up with that tagline that we're here to help exhausted entrepreneurs become elevated experts, because we go into a business to build a life that we love. And yet there's so many things pulling us back into that hustle and grind culture, that shiny object syndrome, that struggle that all of us have to discover our own voice and build our own platform. And so what I realized is that as we worked with more professional speakers, published authors, established podcasters, is that those were the ones that had successfully built a body of work and were able to claim their worth and really grow. And so what I decided is that we were going to build platforms to help elevate experts who might not yet be ready to claim their voice. I know that I personally have struggled a little bit with imposter syndrome and stage fright.
Mhm.
And it's so funny because in this virtual world, like, I talk to millionaires in my day-to-day on Zoom calls too, but then I get nervous about even just having a room full of people
Right.
listening to me and hearing my opinions. So what I decided is we're going to elevate 1,000 experts by launching 100 virtual summits, helping them build the confidence to monetize their signature talk, build and develop their monetize their signature talk, or as many people are doing today, learn to sell from the stage, because you don't have to build anything new. You just have to create an environment where people are ready to listen to your mission, are inspired, and then opt in. It's a lot less painful than trying to drum up business by talking me all the time. Virtual summits really allow you to create these hubs of experts who support each other by bringing together a similar audience. And it's a great way to build your platform.
Love it. I love that. That's I love what you said. Claim your worth. I love that
Yeah.
word.
And
That's
you've
a
been speaking about my platform. What I don't want to forget to mention is that we launched today the Expert Concierge community. So it's a free community where experts can come, those authors, those podcasters, those speakers, and it provides curated speaking opportunities to guest on each other's podcasts. So it creates that collaborative environment where we can work together and then build towards those virtual summits together.
Nice.
Incredible. I love that. Now, is there a way to connect to that? Like, how would we connect to that? Just go to your
Yeah,
LinkedIn
it's as
profile?
easy as going to expertconcierge.co. That's .co.
Okay.
And right now there's a free membership, and then there are a couple of different tiers based off of whether or not you're building your authority or you're building your business.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can pull that up and share that here real time. I think I found it, and I'll be able to share this right now for everybody. If you want to find out about this, you can do it right now. Now, if you're on the podcast, you need to go over to my YouTube channel at Austin J Haines, HAINES.com. But if you're here, you're going to see it at the bottom of the screen there. Oops, that's just the exact copy from the link there, but it's expertconcierge.co. You don't have to worry about that extra stuff. I can change that. But yeah, you can go there, and you said you have a free membership, which
Yeah,
is
and it's very, as you know, like, you start off with an amazing quote. One day of favor can you repeat it?
it's worth 1,000 days of labor.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been such a pleasure. I was called a super connector a few weeks ago, and it's something I think when I was younger I aspired to be but didn't see in myself. But it's so empowering when you find other creators who are willing to lift each other up. And I think the moment you become a creator, you respect and admire the energy and effort that goes into even producing any piece of body work, whether that's launching a podcast or writing an ebook, not even just self-publishing. And the more that I work with creators, the more I admire them. I'm actually working on my own book myself. It's called The Expert's Dilemma. And it's all of these emotional reasons why we as experts who know the right thing to do struggle to actually start the process and complete it.
That's amazing. That's going to serve your community really well. It's kind of, you're building it, and then you're going to deliver this great thing. So this is exciting, great things. Now, if you are here live, we have another guest coming on. But what I want to do right now, I want to hit my sponsor, one of my sponsors, somebody who supported me from the very beginning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move us all out so we can honor this particular person. And then we'll move us back in, and then we're going to bring on our next guest, Mr. Justin Burns. So stay with me. Marlon Mueller has been an incredible friend, consultant. He's a multimillionaire. We coined him the farm boy who became a multimillionaire. He is, I would say, he's accessible compared to some of these other folks out there right now. He's been at this for 35 years. He's been studying wealth principles for 35 years. He has specific things that he does, his approach, and he just wants to help people. So he's going to be building his platform. So he's going to have to meet Justin and Kachina. So we got to connect them too. So let me bring on Dr. Andrea Adams Miller from the Red Carpet Connection. And I am playing producer today. So, and let's bring on Kachina. Let's bring Kachina back on. And then we're going to bring on our next guest. I met this gentleman a few years ago now at an event up in Canada, although he's not from Canada. And then I was fortunate enough to go to his event. So I met him, learned about Miestro, which you're going to hear about Miestro. And then I think it was Georgia. He'll remind me. I think it was Atlanta, Georgia, I think. And he had an incredible event. And you can always tell an event. I'm sure you can attest. You've been to an event where you're kind of in the event. You're kind of like, you're looking around. You're like, and you've also been to events where you go and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like the people are great. You feel that. And that's what Justin's event was like. But what I love about it is that it's not just a feel-good event. He's like a roll up your sleeves kind of a guy and let's do it. And that's basically what he did to build his platform. So I'm hoping he can share a little bit about his story. He's got a great story about what happened to him. And I love it. So hopefully he'll share a little bit of that. And then we can learn about Miestro, which he's great about gathering feedback from people. And I know he's been doing that. And he's going to be relaunching this thing. And I say this thing, it's not just a thing. It is a digital platform, which I don't even know all of it yet. But I want you to give a warm welcome to Mr. Justin Burns, who's joining us from Mexico. Hello, Justin. How are you?
What's going on, Austin? Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Glad you're with us. I'm going to give Dr. Andrea. She just met you recently in the green room, but this is how we roll. We make real connections, real time, live. So there we go.
Well, I actually see that you were or originally from Atlanta. At some point you've been there. I was in Atlanta the last 22 days. So had I realized we could have probably met in person.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I've been in Mexico for almost 2 months. I would have missed you, but
so we would have. Well, I would have flown down for the day.
come on down. Glad to have you.
Well, that's interesting to me because I've been meeting a lot of entrepreneurs who've been traveling down to Mexico, and I've been hearing it just seems to be very fabulous for business for them to be able to travel and do new things. So I'm excited to hear that you're doing that and adding some multiculturalism into everything.
Yeah. I always say, without getting too deep into it, if you want to expand your creativity and you want to kind of step out of your environment, always travel across seas. You meet so many amazing people who are doing the same thing. I made so many connections down here, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. I feel great. I think it's always good to get out of the comfort zone of your environment. You get so many ideas. So I love it. I'm sad. I'm gonna cry. Go home on Wednesday, but I told my mother and my nieces. I said, somebody call me and comfort me before I get on the plane, please. Someone. But it's been an amazing journey. I met some beautiful people down here, and I love it. It's been a journey. So
nice,
Justin. We're glad you're here. I'm eager to hear if you want to share some of your backstory. I love the story about the. I forget if it was your mortgage company or one of those. Hopefully you'll share that with us. I love that story, man. That's such a good one. But yeah, let us know a little bit more about you, because it's incredible what you've built and what you're continuing to build. But I love. Let's get into the heart of the entrepreneur. Like we heard from Kachina how she was about to was at MIT and she completely shifted. Your story is a little different. Are you willing to share that with us today?
Absolutely. I always love to share it's my journey, right? Your journey is what makes you who you are. So I'm probably the opposite of a lot of people who, have dreams of, going to college, and I didn't have that, I didn't have that story. And it wasn't just because of where I grew up. I'm from the South side of Chicago. So I didn't necessarily, it wasn't just because of that. I grew up most of my life believing that I wasn't good enough and that I wasn't smart enough. I'm sure a lot of us feel that way. And so I hopped around from job to job because, like I always say, kids love, kids say, what do you want to be, a doctor, lawyer? When it came to me, I was like, dude, I have no idea. Like, no idea. I don't even think I want to be any of those. And actually that patience actually helped me out a lot. And so fast forward, I remember I got a job as a cell phone salesman, and I did really well. Found out I had the gift of gab, was selling cell phones for years. And then my mom was like, "Are you going to go to college?" And I was like, "No, I absolutely don't want to go to college." So I didn't go to college. But there was this guy who used to come into my store when I was a cell phone salesman. He was a sharp guy. He was always happy. And I just one day said, this dude comes into my store all times of the day, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. I was like, what does this dude do? He's always happy. So I asked him and he said, I'm an internet entrepreneur. And I was like, what the heck? Now, this is 2008. I'm like, what the heck is an internet entrepreneur? What do you do? And he's like, oh, I sell digital products, right? I sell these things called ebooks. And I was just so curious. And he was like, hey, I'm doing this event. Now, this is how naive I was. I was like, what the heck is an event? What is that? I had never attended a webinar. I didn't know what a teleseminar was. I didn't know I was super naive. And so he's like, you should come to the event. I will give you a free ticket. So fast forward, I go to this event and I'm sitting there and I had heard it all, real estate, all this stuff. And I was just really like depressed. I was at that stage. I really wanted to commit suicide at that point in my life. I didn't know what my purpose was. And I always prayed like, God, what is my purpose? And I'll never forget, I was sitting there and all these people are around me. And I'm like, who are these people? Why are they sitting in this room learning all this stuff? And I'll never forget, the guy said something that completely shifted my entire thinking. He said, the internet is the future. People from London, Spain, Germany, Mexico, all over will be able to buy your product. You will have customers everywhere, all over the world. And I don't know why, but it was like this moment, like, I call it like the slow down moment. We all have it, right? When you see your thing and your head kind of turns to the side a little bit and you go, wait a minute. I think that's my thing. I think that's the thing I want to dedicate the next 10 years to.
Yeah.
So I asked this guy, I said, mentor me. So anyway, he's like, I believe in you. And this guy taught me everything he knew about the internet. And I got a chance to see them build courses, right? Because I know Kachina talked about courses. It was my first time I see these guys sitting at this table with a laptop and computer, and they present this offer. And this is 2009. Webinars were still fairly new. The technology just wasn't there. And I saw these guys make a lot of money, and I was like, that's what I want to do. This is, wow, you could do this from anywhere in the world. And it blew my mind because I was never exposed to this type of thing. And so I ventured off. I started my own business. At the time, my then fiance, I was trying to start this internet business. I was teaching people how to do funnels, and the business just wasn't working. It wasn't working. And I got this foreclosure letter in the mail. Right. And, I was afraid to tell my fiance. I was afraid to admit that I had failed. Right. I was afraid. And so she would go, she had a 9 to 5. She would go to work and I would kiss her, say, honey, okay. And then I would have all this panic and I'd be like, what am I going to do? I said I was going to be this entrepreneur. Here I am, absolutely failing miserably at this thing. And so I remember getting on the phone with this guy. I saw this ad and I clicked on it. And I got on the phone with this guy and he was talking about sales. And I said, I have like a couple $1,000 left in my bank account. My house is in foreclosure. My car is about to be repossessed. And he asked me a question that really shifted my thinking. He said, let me ask you a question. Have you burnt the boats yet? And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? He said, have you burnt the boats yet? He said, have you given it all of you got? Have you really sold out for yourself to do whatever it takes to go after your dreams and your purpose and your mission, to truly risk it all, but not just risk, you've already risked it all. Now it's time for you to get a reward for it. And I realized that I was operating in a deep level of fear, like so many entrepreneurs. And I remember it was at that moment where I said, I can either admit to failure, or I can go all in. And I dedicated myself. I burnt the boats. I went all in. I dedicated myself to learning the art of sales, learning the art of marketing, go all in, commit all my time. And I remember I had my first $5,000 a month, and it was 20,000 and then 30,000, and it just kept going up. And I'll never forget, I felt really rich because my mother never made over $20,000 in a year. But here's what I did though. I called my mortgage company, and I had a different energy about me. I said, she's like, you're back, you're about 5-6 months, you're about to go into foreclosure. And I said, I believe that I have the power to purchase my house, right? And she goes, what do you mean? You're in foreclosure. And I said, no, I want to make an offer to purchase my house. And she goes, wait a second. She puts me on hold, and she goes and she talks. She says, what offer do you want to make? And I made 50% offer on she's like, they're not going to accept that. And they accepted it.
Wow.
And so then about 3 months, I like Kachina, and even we were talking about relationships. I built the relationship with this bank rep, and we became really good friends, and she gave me extra time. That's how powerful relationships can be. But here's the reason why I tell this story is because when about 5 months in of buying it, they sent me, I think it was like the deed or the title to the house, and I framed it on my wall. And so every single time I'm plagued with doubt, every single time I go through this fear, I look at that wall and said, Justin, remember what you accomplished. Remember what you did. And I think that has kind of catapulted me into doing hard things like building a technology company. So I always like to tell that story because entrepreneurs can really.
I love the story. And by the way, I already broke my own rules. So Kachina, looks like you're on for the ride here. So unless you got to exit, but no, thanks for sharing that story, Justin, because I love that part because, we're here to talk about the platforms and it's all great, but there's a story that got you here. And I always want to honor that. And here you are now, you're going through another, and it's, gosh, I can only imagine building a tech company, right? Today. I mean, oh my gosh. So maybe we can get into that, but I want to give Dr. Andre a moment here to just kind of reflect on your story, because it's the first time she's hearing it.
Well, it's quite impactful that, I'm very excited when I get to hear, people show up and tell, these things that people would be shocked to hear, like are surprised or taken aback about who they've come. And, I would like to hear just a little inkling more, like who is the biggest hero behind you and making these decisions and coming forward to be you?
Yeah, so I would say I've had a couple heroes, right? And one of them is actually my store manager at the cell phone place. He was the guy. Wow. He was one of the first people who believed in me. He was one of the first people to coach me. He was the first person to say. He was the first person to look at me when I had, because one of the things I tell people is I integrate a lot of spirituality and personal growth into my life, because I didn't even know that you can become a better person. I didn't know that existed. I thought who you were your set of beliefs, you were where you come from, you were your environment, but that's totally not true. You can shift and you could change and you could transform into anything you want to be. That's the power of being a human being. Yep. And so I remember he said, Justin, you're a powerful speaker. And I looked at him and I was like, who is this guy talking about? Because it cannot be me, right? But he saw something in me, right? And he's like, if you develop yourself, he was the first guy to tell me to go and read a book outside of college. I didn't even know you could do that either, right? I didn't know you could do that. Like, he was like, I want you to study this guy, which actually connects to my next mentor. He said, I want you to get this sales book by a guy named Zig Ziglar. And I was like, oh, Zig Ziglar. He's like, go to the library and get this book by Zig Ziglar. So I said, all right. I go and get this guy with this Southern drawl, this really kind of sharp guy. And I'm listening. And as my nephew would make fun of me if I told him about my cassette tape, because these kids, they don't know about the cassette tapes or the 5-second or the 10-second skip protection. We only had skip protection for 10 seconds, right? Or 30 seconds. So I would listen to this guy, and I was like, I would just write all these notes, and I would come back and apply it, write all these notes. And I realized, I was like, wow, I'm getting better. I'm getting more influential. And then in about 6 months, I was the #1 salesman in that company just from that. And I always tell Mike when I see him, I say, I am so grateful that you taught me that I could be better. And you didn't
Yep.
look at the shell. You didn't look at what you see, because human beings, we are so judgmental. We
Yeah.
look at the surface,
Yep.
right?
So
And
true.
so that was one of the first guys who didn't see who didn't judge what he saw. He looked at me and said, man, this guy could become something. So that's I would say that's one of my top heroes. And the unfound, other heroes, Brian Tracy's of the world, the Les Browns, the guys who I look up to, who
Come to think of it, the event that you and I were at, you and I attended, Brian Tracy's son was there. Remember, we had a chance to meet.
I remember that. Yeah.
Well, I'm friends with Brian and his son, and
Nice.
Les, and I shared the stage with Tom Ziegler. So I get super excited because I'm like, these are my peers. So to be able to tell them, like, I'll text them when we get off here and tell them, like, how it makes me just like fill with joy to know that people that I know have, like, you come on here and say these are your heroes. It just love it.
And I had the great fortune. I'm blessed as I think about it. I did meet Zig Ziglar many years ago, and I remember I had purchased a book. He signed it. I have it because he was a great motivator, and it's so fortunate that it sounds like that was a big part of your scaling, and that's a great story. And man, wow, there's another friend of ours, a couple of them that share the same story. Cell phone manager, right? Jose.
I was thinking that
Dana. Dana was one of my other clients, colleagues, friends. His influential person, Dana Banks, was his manager. She believed in him, and now he's got a community. It's growing like crazy. So you just never know. One day of favor, right? Worth 1,000 days of labor. What we were talking about before. So I want to pause for a moment, because normally what I do, so I'm going to shift gears here a little bit, and we want to get back into Justin's story. But what I normally do, and I didn't do here, but we're going to do it now. We'll do this. Justin, what did you think about Kachina's story? I usually give you the opportunity to, because you're just meeting Kachina for the first time, and you got a chance to hear her story. Now that she's on here, I'd love for you to share what you thought, and then I would like to reverse that after.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, I always love to connect the brand. So as Katrina was talking, I was actually checking out her cool brand and going through her site. I always do that just to kind of connect the person, because I think it kind of really brings the story alive, and just to, like, there's always something that connects us, right? And in such a deep way. And I felt that kind of connection, whether backgrounds, race, whatever, religion, there's always something to connect us together, right? And so I just loved her story. And then also just going through, and then I'm one of those, even like with the new Miestro we're building, like I obsessed over the design. So I always could tell people as I'm listening to their story, I'm connecting their brand. I see all her maps and all of her, most people don't go into detail about like this, process and steps. So I always appreciate, my creators. So love hearing your story. It's amazing, and love what you're doing for sure.
Great.
Thank you so much. Those are very kind words.
Yeah. So
I related to your story a lot because I didn't think I would go to college. And I think that's a very unusual thing for people that go to MIT, but it just was not on my radar because I had a blue collar father and did not think that I could elevate myself in my life to the places I've been and the places I dream of going. So I relate a lot to that. I think it's hilarious that you're moving out of digital products and into software, whereas I moved from software into digital products, but I'm sure that there's some connection there. It's still using the internet and the interconnectedness of us all to to have greater impact and income.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yes. That is interesting. And I can see it now, Dr. Andrea. The headline's going to say, want to go to Mars? Right? Want to go to Mars? And they'll say, well, we can't take you to Mars, but if you're a course creator, here's what we can do. Right?
I get those references all the time. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. but I'm thinking like the play on the Mars, like it would be fun to play around with that. But
Absolutely.
no, that's great. So Justin, back to you. Let's talk about what's going on now. You're in Mexico. Tell the truth, man. You just want to get out of the cold weather. Come on. All this
Yeah,
culture.
you gave up my gig. I just hate cold weather. I can't deal with it. I'm originally from Chicago, right? So a lot of people don't know that.
That's right.
I was born and raised in Chicago, and man, if you can beat it in Chicago, you could beat it like anywhere. So, but yeah, I'm in Mexico because I tell people, like, especially if you work from the computer, the best way you get the best ideas is getting out of your comfortable environment and going to meet new people of different backgrounds. And so it's been amazing, and it's helping me kind of build the new version of our platform that we've been building for 2 years. We already did a 1.0 version, and then about a couple of years ago I had a really big spiritual awakening, and I always say that's always connected to me as well. It was funny because I have a shaman, right? And I was at this spiritual retreat, and I remember she was talking about community, and she was like, yeah, like most creators, they just throw people either in a Facebook group or throw people in a WhatsApp group or whatever it is. And then I was like, it would be better if you took people through like this cycle and they went through this success path and they were able to kind of see themselves finishing. And then I went back to my team and I was like, wait a second. I felt so disconnected because at that point, being transparent, I was starting to sabotage my company a lot. We have thousands of users, and I started to sabotage my company a lot. And so now I got a chance to rebuild it. And I went to my team and I said, we got to rebuild this product to match who we've become, because we've become a different team. And we've grown a lot. And I remember my team was like, you're crazy. Like, why would we rebuild this product? Why would we rebuild this product? And I was like, because we got new designers, we got new UX people, we got new, everything. So I said, let's rebuild it. So we spent 2 years, and man, the feedback we've been getting, I'm just excited for what we're about to release in the next 30 days.
So it's going to be released in the next 30 days. So be on the lookout for that. And just a word on Miestro, if somebody's never heard about it, and then we're gonna kind of go to a wrap here. So somebody's never heard about Miestro, what would you tell them?
Yeah, so Miestro started off as a course platform, but Miestro, which is, you can find it at maestro.com/new to join the wait list. But Miestro 2.0, as we're calling it, Miestro 2.0, evolved into more of a video platform and what's happening with the future, right? So only 10% of people complete online trainings, right? You can have the best training in the world, but you can't change human psychology. And so what we realized is that we needed to shift towards what was happening. So we believe that, the future is about 3 components. One is going to be AI. We've all seen the ChatGPT and all that, but AI is going to evolve into something even more that we can even fathom, right? And then you have robotics, but not just the robots walking around, but you're going to have more automations. And then you also have the blockchain, right, which is so huge, and people have their opinions about the blockchain, but then you're also going to have virtual reality. So you have all these technologies that's going to, in my opinion, at the same time kind of sync together. And so I would describe Miestro as a platform for creators of the future. So, we've injected AI into our platform to help creators. It has community, affiliate program. We have so many things that we decided that we wanted to bring to the market. And so we took our 1.0 feedback and we kind of cultivated into 2.0. And we've been meeting with customers, like 3 or 4 customers a day, and just going crazy with feedback. And people are just like, I love where this is going. So it's a platform for creators to basically get their videos out there. And really, video is already the future, but it's going to evolve more into smart tools, as we call it, releasing certain smart tools that are going to be really game changer. So,
well, I admire your ability to pioneer, to not lay back on your laurels, and to be able to go and do that. And as we close here, because we're getting close on time, I just want to go to both of you and maybe just give some insight to somebody who is maybe they just started out, or maybe they've been in it for a while, but they're struggling in this space. So I'll start with Kachina and just say, what would you recommend? So you could be an author, a speaker, somebody with a podcast. I know, and I realize there's all different people at all different levels. But let's just say that's that newer person, maybe, who either they're just getting started, or maybe they're in it a little bit, but they're looking to grow. What would you offer to them?
Speaking back to Justin's point about the future being video and the work that we're doing, trying to elevate experts on the stage, virtual and otherwise, is that you really do have to own the value of your voice and your expertise. It's not enough to be good at what you do. You actually have to have the confidence to put it out there in the world. And I think that's where all of us kind of have to do that deep emotional work that Justin referenced back to, which is that this life of becoming a creator, becoming an entrepreneur, really does challenge you to develop as a person. And one of the places to start is on that self-worth, that what you have to say is of value, whether you monetize it downstream or upfront. It's all about claiming your worth and then speaking it into an existence.
Well said. Well said. Justin.
Yeah, so I think it's the same. I would venture to say it's the same thing. It's like, one of the things I always tell creators is like, you could create all day, but, if nobody sees the thing, then, it's not going to matter, right? Your creation is just going to be there. So one of the biggest things that I tell creators is like, don't just think, there's so many experts with so many different opinions that you have to eventually come to the point where you listen to people, but you use their frameworks to match with who you are, right? And when you combine that, you follow your own path. Like for me, I did a lot of videos, I did a lot of stuff, but I had to develop what worked for me, which was joint venture partnerships, which is what grew Miestro, right? So sometimes you'll find that what most people tell you to do, like ads or all this other stuff, find your path and really just make sure, like, the person, if you are afraid to put it out there, we all were afraid, we all were afraid to put ourselves out there. But I think about it in reverse, which when I get really nervous about like, what will people think about this? I always think about the people that I'm not helping, right? The people that are suffering, the people that I can't help because I'm afraid to put it out there. So that kind of gives me a lot of introspection, and it makes me go, screw it, let's do it, right? Which is my
love
saying.
that.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Great stuff. Dr. Andrea, any final?
I'm just really pleased to meet both of you. And, you guys keep talking about mindset. So if you don't mind, I'm going to do a little brag myself. I just graduated Friday with my trainer's training. I already was a master practitioner and master hypnotist and master success coach trainer. But now I have my own school. So the Subconscious Connection Institute for Business and Personal Development. So thank you guys both of supporting, talking about that inner mindset, about what we do to bring that together. And I'm really excited to see what you guys are going to create, because I see so much possibilities for the things that you are pulling together and making. You both are brilliant, and I'm very excited to I think you're just beginning.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to share if you want to get in touch with Kachina Gosselin, her website's right there, expertconcierge.co. Learn about that platform. It's a free membership right now to connect authors, podcasters, and the like influencers. That sounds amazing because you've already proven yourself as an incredible connector. So I want to encourage everybody to go there. And then we have Justin Burns, CEO of Miestro.com. 2.0 is coming in the next 30 days. But I would go in there and just learn now. Just go check it out. And you said it's Miestro New. Is that the new website? Is there anything up there yet?
Yeah. So it's a whole wait list of all of our new features. So it's maestro.com/new. That's where you can join the wait list and see all the cool stuff that we
/new. All right, let me just put that up because I want to make sure everybody gets this. Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Miestro.com/new. I think you're both doing amazing things. If you are listening, we're getting most of our views. We're last time I checked, it's 22,000 views, but we're getting them through Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku. It makes sense. That's where people sit down and usually watch longer form video. However, I want to encourage you to get over to the YouTube channel, AustinJHaines.com, because then you can interact. It makes it easier to connect in real time. And that's what we're working on for the show, to get those folks that are watching. So I know you're watching. Make sure you come over and check us out at the YouTube channel. Get involved. Your comments, your chats all matter. Same thing with the podcast. I encourage you to get over to the video so you can see these folks, get to connect with them, and we can do great things together. So Dr. Andre, I'm going to ask you to stay on with me. I'm going to say thank you so much, Justin Burns. Thank you so much, Kachina, for being here today on the Austin J Haines Show. The best things are in works. And just want to encourage you to connect with both of them. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Bye-bye. So Dr. Andre, it's another great show. It's something that we're going to definitely put out there and share for folks to connect with. We talked about platform, right? We talked about folks getting onto a platform and cultivating that. And I just love what Justin's doing with the video movement, because it seems that's where people are consuming more video content.
Absolutely.
So I'm eager to see what his new updates are. But your final thoughts as we close out here from the Dr. Andre Adams Miller.
Yeah. So my final thoughts would be, you can hear from the guests that we've had on tonight that, people, what they thought was going to happen for themselves suddenly became something new and different. And as you go out in the world, be very open to the fact that change, while surprising and different, can turn out to be one of the most beautiful and creative things that you could ever do. And it allows you to use parts of your mind and parts of your creativity and art that you never anticipated, by allowing that new path to be open in front of you and for you to take that change in the road. And as a friend of mine said the other day, he was like, whoever thought that making, he said he would see people throw away their change, and he meant from their dollar bills. And he said, and they don't realize that sometimes the smallest change makes the biggest impact.
I love that. And I'm going to close the show with 1 minute here. One day of favor is worth 1,000 days of labor. And that one day of favor is most likely going to come through a new connection that you make. It's not going to come from staying where you are. It's going to come from reaching out. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. We'll see you next week.